Rafał Dutkiewicz.
Okay, welcome everybody. The issue is there is always problem how to begin this speech. Then maybe about the spirit of Wrocław. It happened many years ago. There was a Israeli Minister of Culture visiting the city of Wrocław, and me in my office, I was expecting him in my office, and instead of him, there was a young lady entering my room, and she said immediately, "I'm not the minister. I'm just his assistant because Mr. Minister went to the toilet." And I asked her immediately, "What for?" And her reaction was pretty nice because they told me in Warsaw, "You crazy." Maybe this is the best description about the creativity of the city of Wrocław. Anyway, coming year 2016, most probably the most important year in the history of Wrocław after the Second World War. We will be the European capital of culture. It's something really, really great because culture in the strategy of the city is the most important issue to treat our challenges. And there is one very important point to discuss the right to culture, to discuss the Wrocław dictionary. This is the very idea of Andreas. Therefore, I would ask you now to give a really big applause to my friend Andreas. And this is a proper time to tell you, Andreas, how deep I appreciate your involvement, your idea, and the way you work around. The city of Wrocław is something what seems to be really interesting. You know the complex history of this very town. 1,000 years in the history. We have had at least 70 versions of the name. It started from Wrocławia, switched to Breslavia. Nowadays, it's called Wrocław, and there is a proper pronunciation of this name. There is laugh inside, as you probably know. Wrocław. What is laugh? Everybody knows. What is Wroc? That there is something you do before making laugh. This is anyway. What was really crucial in the history was the year 45, when the whole population of Wrocław, 100% was exchanged. I mean the Germans, because before the Second World War it used to be a German city. Nowadays it's a Polish city. The Germans they were expelled from the city of Wrocław, and they expelled Poles from the previous Eastern Polish territories. They came to Wrocław, but remember, not 20%, not 80%, 100% exchange of the population. And then we will be celebrating this month the 50th anniversary of something what was really important. In the year 65, there was a letter sent from Polish bishops to German bishops, and the author of this letter was a Wrocław bishop, Cardinal Kominek, and there is a very important sentence put in this letter, which is saying, "We forgive you, and we are asking for forgiveness," and that was the beginning. The beginning of the reconciliation between Poland and Germany started with this very sentence: "We forgive you, and we are asking forgiveness. I would say it's a beautiful sentence. And what is really from the point of view of the day to day, what is really important. Kominek was asked after what was the reason to write this letter, and his answer was really nice, because he said nationalism is something from the past. Our future is Europe, the European project. This is our future. Let's see, a Polish bishop saying in the year 66, Europe is our future, because of something he wanted to create. Okay, one more time. Thank you very much for coming. Enjoy Wrocław. There is an important slogan of my city, Wrocław. Spend here your time and your money, please. Okay, stick to this. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
I'm now looking for the program, and the next one to speak is Kimmo. I saw Kimmo here. Kimmy, what? Maybe you should ask to come. Kimmo.
Thanks, Andreas. Mr. Mayor, thanks so much for your opening and welcoming words. It is indeed much easier to take the microphone after you and after you have said this very nice feeling. For me, this is second time in Wroclaw. The first one was 10 years ago, and maybe it says something about the European kind of tradition and feeling here, because that was also related to the Council of Europe. It was the 50th anniversary of the European Cultural Convention. I don't want to think that it was 10 years ago, but seems to be that way already. Dear colleagues, it's my great pleasure to convey to the Compendium authors, all of you here, the best regards from the Steering Committee on Culture, Heritage and Landscape of the Council of Europe. We do know and value a lot of the work that you are doing. I also reminded myself when I was reading the background papers that it is actually since 17 years that the Compendium has been around. So it started in 1998. Incidentally, the very same year I started my 3-year stint at the Secretariat of the Council of Europe. I had nothing to do with that. But I remember some of the discussions I was having with Kathrin Merkle then, and I think that I referred to the Compendium as the golden egg that came out of the national cultural policy reviews that the Council of Europe had been carrying out. And I stick to that. If Compendium was a movie, I think that perhaps in the credits it would say something like based on the original idea of Kathrin, and the executive producers would be Andreas, Wiesand, Ritva Mitchell, later on all of you, and as regards the artistic credit, it's difficult to say, but again I think because the Compendium is a community of practice, again it would be all the authors who provide the actual content and who are also producers in this business. As for us, government officials from different Council of Europe member states, well, I don't speculate on what you might want to call us. But I hope that we sometimes are able to help a little bit. Co-producers, perhaps. Thanks, Andreas. Yeah, that's a polite way of saying it. You know, I'm personally quite astonished to see how the Compendium has evolved. I have always been much impressed by the flexibility of the community, how the Compendium grid has been enlarged and also consolidated when needed. And I'm quite sure that today Compendium is one of the most sophisticated information systems existing in any policy sector. and that's quite an achievement. However, of course, we should recognize, even though we are kind of celebrating the anniversary and this is the annual gathering, but we should bear in mind that not everything is so good and fine. Of course, the perceived importance and relevance of the community depends on a number of issues. I name two that I think are critical. Firstly, the compendium is based on the understanding that the Council of Europe and its member states want to have extensive and comparative information on cultural policies in different Council of Europe member states. And of course we do, but as you know at least as well as I do, cultural policies have traditionally been very much national, regional and also local. I mean, following the basic principle of subsidiarity, and that's the way it should be. But it also means, on the other hand, that still quite often, perhaps too often, cultural policy making is domestic, regional or local. And we do not look around because we all are facing the same challenges, the same possibilities that we try to tackle maybe too much alone in the ministries of culture. So that, I think it's gradually changing, but that's still a factor we need to take into account when thinking how valued the compendium is. And it has nothing to do with the compendium community or the system itself, but of us, as you would say, policymakers, but government officials and politicians. The second point is that the compendium is indeed an information system, but is it a monitoring system? I would absolutely maintain that yes, it is, but it is somewhat unlike, let's say, traditional convention or legal instrument monitoring systems, because simply in the field of cultural policy, there is only one international legal instrument, and that's the UNESCO Convention, let's say for the sake of brevity, the Cultural Diversity Convention of 2005. There's a lot of soft law, declarations and recommendations, but very few clear kind of legal reference points that you could base the follow-up and monitoring on. But as I said, I maintain that the compendium is clearly a monitoring tool in addition to being an information system. And in this context, and judged by the discussion that we have had in the steering committee, I think it's a very welcome direction that the community is taking now when embarking on an exercise to clarify the sometimes rather confusing relationship between, it's not between, but how culture and human rights are interconnected. And I think exercises like the Wroclaw commentaries is a case in point. That's exactly the kind of information we need at the European and national level. So I believe that this is a very promising area to work on. And once again, as a kind of very modern community or practice that you are probably the best positioned experts in Europe, maybe in the world, to provide us with this critical link. In the Council of Europe context, that is the number one thing. And I think there would be rather significant agreement in the room on the fact that this particular aspect, how culture is related and contributes to human rights and also democracy, is kind of, let's say, it's far from being fully fledged or understood. And when we do that in the Council of Europe context, I hope that we can also widen the deliberations within that organization and bring a contribution that nobody else is currently doing. So with these words, thanks a lot for inviting me. It's always a pleasure, and yes, indeed, best wishes from the steering committee.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Kimmo, I forgot to introduce him actually. He's the Vice Chair of the Council of Europe Steering Committee on Culture, Heritage and Landscape, CDCPP. That's really something, in Strasbourg. Okay, I'm Sorry, I have to ask, is Piotr Wach here, the Vice Chair of the Committee on Culture, Science, Education and Media of the Parliamentary Assembly among us? If not, we will have to skip this for the time being, could be repeated later. That's something I need to tell you, most of you are already aware of that. We are quite numerous here, but we could be even more numerous if all were able to be here. Due to the strike of certain people in a certain country I'm not so unfamiliar with, actually quite a small number of people, I must say, for this big effect they are creating. Some people cannot join us, so we have to sort of improvise and be flexible with our agenda in order to accommodate for that problem. But we have always tried to be flexible. Most Compendium people are well aware of that, to the good and to the bad. And therefore, let's say, Piotr, if he's still coming later on, we will, of course, invite him to speak. And now I'm coming to the first real traditional point, and that is the annual reports of the editors and of the Compendium author from the country, hosting country, and in this case it's Dorota. So please, Kathrin and Dorota, would you join me here on the table? Thank you.
So, thank you very much, Andreas. I think you already gave me the floor. Thank you very much. And I would like to start my intervention, of course, with a thanking round. And first and foremost to the mayor of the city of Wroclaw, to this wonderful cultural city, who has had the generosity and the interest and, of course, the spirit and the intellectualism to have this meeting here. And this pre-works with Andreas Wiesand on the issue of cultural rights. It's a pleasure to hand over a small present from the Council of Europe to you. Thank you also very much to your organizing team and to the director of the Center for Culture, who, as I hear, has had also a major role in making this a successful event and organizing everything to our utmost satisfaction. Well, thanking round, as always. The long-standing support of Kimmo Aulake, the vice chair to our steering committee of culture, of course, is key here. Without him, this project wouldn't be where it is. Without him, maybe this project wouldn't be at all. So, Kimmo, thank you very much. Also, on behalf of the Secretariat of the Council of Europe, who is working with and for this steering committee. And then thirdly, I would like to thank all the authors, all of those, and the other guests who have made it to come here, even though it wasn't easy for some of us. You are, of course, the spine and the brain and the soul and also the heart of this project. Without you, it couldn't exist. It is a totally decentralized information system run by independent experts. It's really unique in that way. Welcome to everybody. I will now move on, and as it says on the program, I want to give an annual report, and I want to go broader and deeper here. So I will not really speak a lot about the compendium. Andreas will be doing that in a few minutes, but I would like to give you some more information about what has happened and moved us back home in Strasbourg. Because this is the context, and this is actually the frame of our cultural activities in this organization, of which the compendium is just one activity. So, as we are all painfully aware, the year started very tough, on a tough note with Charlie Hebdo. The Council of Europe's position was very firm in this, insisting on being the guardian of fundamental rights of freedom of expression. But at the same time, the organization made it also very clear that it wanted to be the voice of reason in the debate as to what should be the limits of freedom of expression. And of course, there has been quite some case law following the event of January during this year. There is now a new focus within the Council of Europe on issues of democratic security. Anti-terrorism work has gathered speed, And an additional protocol to the Council of Europe Convention on the Prevention of Terrorism was drafted within a record space of time. The Secretary General's annual report on the state of democracy, human rights, and the rule of law, which is a relatively new product, it started in 2014, was issued and devoted as well to the issue of democratic security. Once more, all the monitoring results of the various Council of Europe instruments were gathered, and the report partly draws a rather gloomy picture of Europe. Apart from chapters on the judiciary, on freedom of expression, freedom of assembly and association, and the functioning, of course, of democratic institutions, there is a chapter also dealing with inclusive societies and with democratic citizenship, looking at social rights, anti-discrimination, integration policies, young people, and issues of education. Something, however, is still missing. It starts with a C. You guess what it is. Just like culture. We will come back to that when speaking about monitoring later today. Another development of importance and worthwhile to report on here is the upcoming World Forum for Democracy running next week from 18 to 20 November in Strasbourg. It is entitled Freedom versus Control for a Democratic Response. How can individual freedoms and the right to safety be reconciled? The question challenges democracies around the world, and the global nature of the threat calls indeed for a global response, and, of course, a return to universal principles, particularly those of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Participation in this event will be global too. Some 1,500 people are expected to discuss the issues, ranging from surveillance, technical issues, to the theme of overcoming fear, how to overcome fear, and thirdly, the issue of media responsibility. An additional 1,200 school children will discuss their big issues related to the forum. So that's also a novelty, involving children in the political debates. As well, from within our directorate, I want to briefly report on the second Council of Europe Platform Exchange on Culture and Digitization, which was held in early September in Linz, Austria, in the framework of the 2015 Ars Electronica Festival. The event looked at the latest developments and innovations relating to digital cultural creativity and its links to participation in democracy. And it aimed to gather suggestions to build the Internet of Citizens, as we refer to it. Again, the results of the debate show that the cooperation potential through digitization is infinite. It's huge. But the power of digitization has not yet been fully used for equal access, societal inclusion, and multi-perspectivity. So there's something to be done, and there's, of course, also a very interesting issue for us as regards the compendium. It seems also that the cultural institutions are not yet ready to face the newly emerging, rather uncontrolled digital living culture. Unsurprisingly, ownership principles and traditional thinking will not help when dealing with today's mixing, meshing, co-producing, co-creating culture, as all the participants agreed. So we need new solutions, and we need more research, and we need more inclusion, and we need, of course, more ethics, internet ethics, media, and information literacy. Very badly needed. Next year's exchange platform will take place in Tallinn, in Estonia. We do not yet have the theme, but as we know, this country is ready to digitize just everything. So let's be surprised what the government will come up with as a proposal. A last project I would like to report on is the Intercultural Cities project. Quite well known. We have the Intercultural Cities Index on the Compendium website. This is one of the most successful and visible initiatives of the Council of Europe in view of integration. It seems that there's now 72 cities, and it is globalizing this project. There's Tokyo, Mexico City, and Montreal taking part. Refugee integration is their new focus via, interestingly, social and professional integration. So once more, the colleagues are badly missing examples and experiences from the cultural sector, as I was told. And this is also a message that I'm supposed to bring here to the Compendium authors, as the best placed group probably in Europe to address this issue. Within this, I would now very quickly move on to the compendium developments, but only very briefly. What we saw in Strasbourg as major steps regarding the 2015 developments is, of course, the website design. More fresh, more colorful, more accessible, more modern. Wonderful. Thank you so much to Jörg Torkler, and thank you also to even further efforts in this direction. The progress made on conceiving short compendium profiles, actually a totally new product, is of course very well received in Strasbourg because it goes back to one of our governmental delegates' concrete proposal, our Swiss delegate Julia Dao, who has invested quite some time into working out a proposal. Relatedly, the idea of making the profiles digestible and accessible from mobile devices, a very necessary and very promising investment, mainly by Andreas, so far as I understand. New profiles, Cyprus, you all know about it. Andreas will be speaking about it. Belarus, forthcoming. So this is really new. It was a great experience to be visiting the Deputy Minister of Culture and his team and all the researchers from the Belarusian Cultural Institute, which is an arm's length institute to the ministry, of course, and discuss with them their forthcoming inclusion in the project. Well, my wish would be that Turkey would take the same decision and eventually join in. It's the last big country that is really missing our community of expertise. On the downside, of course, the ongoing issue of resources. We will be discussing this later in more detail, but I trust that with everybody's efforts and ideas, and mainly it is ideas that are needed here, we will overcome the misery so as to ensure the ongoing progress of the project. And having listened to the mayor, having listened to Kimmo, and having listened to many, many people yesterday when we discussed the Asian version of the compendium called World CP, of course, it's just incredible that we're not able to come to grips with this issue of financial resources for an outstanding information system. It should be possible. I hope we make it. Now, a last and final word on our gathering here in Wroclaw. And this may be also a summary of what I said before. Both monitoring and human rights-oriented cultural policies are key issues at the Council of Europe, even though they do not appear explicitly in this combination and formally in this combination in our program and budget in our program of activities. As far as we can see today, the issue will only gain in importance, and so we are once more on the right track. And having used the word right track, I would like to add that working on these right tracks is and has been for the past years also a result of the hard work, of the expertise and the anticipation of Andreas and his team, of course, Oliver and the other colleagues involved. So this is a moment to thank wholeheartedly Andreas for an excellent cooperation and some excellent thinking over the years. Thank you very much for your attention, and let's have a great conference in this cultural city. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathrin. My pleasure is now to welcome and introduce a few people who are not usually and always part of this meetings of our community. In addition to the people you've already heard, there is Jegert Roman, the advisor of the mayor. I don't know if he is in the room. I don't see him now. We expect Krzysztof Dudet, Director, National Center for Culture in Warsaw, as one of the hosts of this whole gathering. Piotr Wach, the Vice Chair of the Committee on Culture, Science, Education, Media. Is he in the room? Those who I name, they should just stand up in case they are already here. You know. Vesna Marjanovic, Vice Chairperson of the Subcommittee on Culture, Diversity and Heritage of the Parliamentary Assembly. She comes also later. Then Alfonso Zardi, he's here? Could he stand up? Ah, yeah, great, thank you. So you all know whom to address when it comes to Council of Europe matters. He's the right one. Of course, Siobhan Montgomery from the Council of Europe office, which actually oversees the Compendium activities together with Kathrin. You are, of course, known to most Compendium authors. Stand up. So here you are. Great, wonderful. And of course, I cannot really do this without, and that is not just something I'm doing incidentally. Repeat my heartfelt thanks for another year of intensive and trusted collaboration with the Council of Europe in this framework of Compendium and Culture Watch Europe initiatives. I mean, that is something really remarkable. And as I will say later, it is also something very special you don't find elsewhere. Last not least, Jan Weiss and Adriana Savcik from the Wroclaw Foreign Relations Office. Jan, he's out right now, and it's just great. He did such a great job. Ah, yeah, here he is. So if you have any question regarding Wroclaw and what it is up to, these are the people to address. They did such a great job in preparing this assembly. We also have other guests, and it's good that they stand up because not all of you know each other. And that is, of course, Sarah Gardner and Anna-Marie Laxonen from our partner IFACA. Here you are. Yes, hello. Then it's Anupama Sekar from the Asia Europe Foundation. Yes, here she is. Plus a group of World CP experts coming from, and now I'm quoting, Cambodia, India, South Korea, the Philippines, Mongolia, Lebanon, Vietnam. I'm asking you to all stand up, please. I won't read all your names because I would fall into a language trap. This really makes us a truly international conference. Actually, for the first time, you know, we never had such a broad international coverage like this time. Sveta Andreeva, Policy Officer, European Culture Foundation. Here she is. She is an old Compendium colleague, some of you will remember. Then Kathrin Heid from Culture Action Europe. Is she? Ah, here she is. Great. Wonderful that you made it despite the strike. Brave. Eva Maria Belzer, Board of Directors, Swiss Center of Expertise in Human Rights. Here she is. Wonderful. We will hear her tomorrow. Rico Valer, Scientific Officer, Swiss. Oh, he's not yet here, I guess. Yes, here he is. Wonderful. We will put you into the program somehow. That's not a problem. Then we have, of course, several Polish guests, including distinguished scholars from Wroclaw, Warsaw, Poznan, Aleksandra Ozmianska-Paget. Is she here? Yes, there she is. Anna Śledinska, Simon, not in the room. Sylvia Stanos, oh, yeah, you are much better than Strakowska. Then Hanna Schreiber and Dominika Bichawska-Siniarska, not yet here. I'm sorry, I may have overlooked other guests, or they will introduce themselves later. It just shows you that we have quite a number of people around which are not usually part of this meeting. I'm coming now into Compendium matters, and this is the moment where to thank for voluntary national contributions who helped us to survive. The Compendium colleagues will recall that we reminded you earlier this year to ask your CDCPP now I managed to actually speak it properly. Delegates or national government contacts about voluntary contributions or other ways to support the Compendium. In 2015, voluntary contributions came from France, Croatia, Monaco, and of course Poland at the host of this wonderful assembly. So thank you very much. However, due to, again, a reduced compendium budget for this year's compendium edition, their generous support would not have prevented us at the ERICarts Institute from running into a deficit again, much larger than in the previous years. A minus of 16,500 euros would have been very difficult to balance, I must say, via other projects of internal saving measures. Therefore, it came as a wonderful surprise that the Netherlands recently offered to cover a larger part of that deficit with a research grant. Thank you so much, Robert Osterhuis. Is he already here? He probably is not yet here, but anyway, I think he deserves an applause from all of us. This applause should, of course, also include those authors or governmental experts who were so kind to waive their remunerations for the updates or completion of compendium profiles, which has been the case with those of Belgium, Wallonie, Cyprus, Switzerland, Finland, Greece, Monaco, Malta, the Netherlands, and Poland. Again, thanks a lot, it helped, because all of this shows that there's a real spirit of cooperation that even in difficult time comes to fruition. It is based, this type of individual generosity, either on the author or on administrative agreements. And this is, of course, greatly appreciated. At the same time, it could also be considered part of a model for the future organization and financing of the compendium, which we have to seriously discuss during the next 2 years ahead. Clearly, there are, as usual, two sides of this coin. Daniel Klisch, who could not join us because of the annual meeting of UNESCO taking place in Paris in parallel to our meeting, but sends warm regards to all of you, told me a few days ago that the compendium must be considered worldwide the only comprehensive research-driven tool for information, comparison and monitoring of cultural policies and trends that survived for nearly 20 years. Actually, it will be 18 years next year. The Council of Europe, the participating governments, the ERICarts Institute, the whole community of experts can indeed be proud of that record and should make every effort to preserve and further develop as much as possible of that legacy. Danielle also said that the compendium is seen by her as a model for how a future global monitoring of the implementation of UNESCO's Diversity Convention could be organized. This is where particularly our partners of the World CP could find a legitimate role, and I look forward to what Ifeka and Azef will tell us later in this assembly. On the other hand, those of you who participated at the earlier meeting of the European Association of Cultural Researchers, ECORES, they also know that we are already now in the midst of what we could consider a true transition phase of the compendium. However, should the budget further decline, such a transitional period cannot last forever. Maybe we should envisage another 2 years during which we either arrive at a stronger financial backing, for example, via voluntary contributions and sponsors, or find jointly with the Council of Europe a sort of a transfer modus which gradually puts the financial and organizational responsibilities of the compendium into more hands than just these two organizations. For example, it could be scientific NGOs like ECORES and universities with cultural policy courses one could think of. One could also think of certain countries who could involve themselves more strongly. Let's all consider and discuss this perspective with an open mind, including what it could mean for the individual experts, their role, and of course, the deserved remuneration for all their efforts to keep the compendium vital and responsive to new political challenges, such as, for example, the cultural dimensions of the current refugee crisis. Now, I'm happy to introduce a few new activities of the compendium. Despite all these problems we had, we were able to not go through a standstill in development. And let me just mention 2 or 3 examples. Compendium webmaster Jörg Torgler, the spiritual head of all the programming and technical development of our website, helped, as Kathrin has already said, to redesign and bring our system more in line with Compendium, with Council of Europe standards. You know, they have their standards, and we had to learn about them, and we did. As well, it was reprogrammed and restructured in order to be compatible for new technology devices such as smartphones and tablets. I will later come back to these issues. We also implemented a Support Your Compendium section, which allows, first of all, simple financial donations to the Compendium via PayPal, credit card, and the classical transfers. In addition, we also asked for support via an improved user feedback and the possibility to be involved in the Compendium by applying to become a lead expert for country profiles who are not up to date for a long time. Currently, this includes 3 countries, and I urge all people to spread the news: Albania, Portugal, and Slovakia. I learned earlier from Oliver, who is really, as I said earlier, the ERICarts member, the person without the Compendium wouldn't work a single day. Well, anyway, he informed me that we have already, through this new functionality, an application from Albania. So it seems to work. That's a great news. So we can also, through this new feature, people can apply to join us as contributing experts, quite a number, or by joining other Compendium experts and alumni as a member of the ERICarts association, which supports our community of practice. This September, and that's the last example, the first of a potential series of Compendium country comparisons staged in Kiev, Ukraine, and we will hear later about that. It was an international seminar organized by our member and longtime expert, Alexander. Alexander, thanks a lot. It was a great success, and it was a real model that you produced, which should be taking place in other regions in Europe, similar to the one you staged. Oliver will tell us, together with Alexander and maybe Viktor Raslyutkos, who also took part later, about this. Finally, I have to welcome a couple of experts who for the first time participate in our assembly. And maybe this is the moment some of you may have been waiting for. Will he again dare starting a fungi speech, like in Vienna or last year in Brussels? Okay, I don't have much time left, so it will be difficult to do that, but still I would insist the Compendium is indeed miraculously mushrooming. Every year again we can welcome new colleagues in our ranks, most of them taking over from previous authors who as alumni remain nevertheless committed to our community. And all newcomers, please, can you please stand up when I call your name? For example, Carmen Croeturu, I'm sorry. Yes, you will inform us how you're really. And then Andrei Kraciun, also from Romania. Here he is, wonderful. Marielle Hendricks, Director Bookman Stichting, the Netherlands. Here she is. Then Goran Tomka from Serbia. Great. Anna Kapinska from Poland. Here she is. Elka Czarnokoszeva from Germany. Here she is. Heritiana Ranaivosan. Here. Wonderful. He will come later with an interesting contribution. And finally, and last not least, of course, you have already mentioned Natalia Murina and Ala Staskiewicz from Belarus. They are not yet here? Okay, I'm sorry. Well, I wanted to say something nice about them, but we can do that later in a more private surrounding. I'm happy, very happy to welcome all new experts of the community. Actually, the constant flow of new experts joining the Compendium community demonstrates that we managed somehow to stay alive despite all odds. Clearly, we also need the expertise of the old race horses, some of which went through all the ups and downs of the past 17 years. I won't name them all, you know them probably very well. Whether we can still count on them in the future depends first of all on individual decisions, of course, but also on time budgets or on health considerations. Some people couldn't join us because they just have fallen ill. I mentioned one of them, that's Rod Fischer. He would have really loved and was prepared to come, but it just didn't go. This includes, of course, me personally, and surely before you ask yourself, will he be staying forever? I would already have tried to hand over to someone from the next generation, so don't worry about that point. Okay, at this very moment, I still feel sort of capable to assist our partners at the Council and all of you during the different transition phase I just mentioned. We have to go through that, and I have a faint hope that we still can celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Compendium all together. Should be a big celebration, actually. However, in 2018, when this will be the place, we should all be prepared for a new start that may include a couple of new faces who accept the responsibility for the future of this initiative. And an initiative, as has been said earlier, started by Kimmo, started in 1998 by Kathrin and some courageous delegates of the Council of Europe Culture Committee. I would particularly mention the Austrian one who was very eager and helpful to actually get this all started, you know. How will cultural policies be looking then when we are meeting in 2018? For me, the big question is, will they still be guided by what you asked for, by the true European spirit? Or will we face again national insulation and jealousy, as it sometimes seems to be the case in a few countries? Who can tell at this moment? My feeling and my experience tells me if we understand that even errors, misconceptions, false information happen, they can turn out to be beneficial as long as we are able to learn from them. In that sense, I'm staying reasonably optimistic. Thank you all very much, and thank you for your work. Now it's time for the author of the year, and that's Dorota.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I'm really very pleased to be there, and to be there exactly in this place, in this city of Wrocław, which is going to be European Capital of Culture next year, and to share with you very personal memories on Compendium and on ECOC program at all, because it is linked in a way sometimes. So I'm really long-lasting profile author. So it was in 1996, but it was not really the time of Compendium. It was when I was the rapporteur for Latvian report on cultural policies in Latvia. It was within the program initiated by Council of Europe. The reports were great. They were really fantastic. But I think that they had many limits, and one of them was fact that they were not updated. And the access to them was not very easy. So it was rather limited number of readers of reports. And I think that it was one of the major premises to initiate the concept of Compendium, like it is now at the moment, updated and very easy access and comparative in a way. So what was the next milestone? It was 2001 when, together with Luisa Drela from Ministry of Culture, I was preparing for the first time Polish profile. It had altogether 30 pages. Sweet dreams, sweet memories. After then, it was about 13 times, 14 times maybe, 13 rather, when we had to update the profile together with young researchers. I did it together with young researchers from ProCultura Foundation. Then we had 2010, and it was time when I was texting to my friend that Warsaw was shortlisted in the ECOC competition program, in the European Capital of Culture program, because Warsaw was fighting with Wroclaw that time. We were not the winners. Wrocław is the winner, and I'm so happy to be there here because I still remember how tough it was to be involved in this program and how creative the beats for this program were. So now I'm really happy to have the two of those facts combined, to bring also two of my young researchers here for our meeting, Anna and Sylvia. And I'm really full of I'm really very grateful to Andreas and to Oliver for keeping this fantastic program alive. And my last dream is that very soon we are going to be rich, not only in its content. Thank you very much.
Yes, great. Now we are leaving this podium, and Kimmo should be chairing from now on for our session B, Compendium and World CP, Soft Monitoring Tools for Cultural Diversity, Social Inclusion Policies or Instruments. Thank you.